Hey, what's up, guys? Got an email from someone who's a little bit confused about polyphony, and I'm going to be talking about polyphony and voices. So we're going to start with an example of a monophonic, which is one polyphony, monophonic, monopolyphony, one polyphony. So that would be this Moog classic synth, and you can only play one note at a time. If you try to play two notes at a time, it usually plays the higher one, or whatever one you play in order first, kind of thing. You can only play one note at a time, but it has three voices. So the voices would be pretty self-explanatory. If you look at a choir of 12 people, there's 12 voices. If you look at a acoustic guitar, 6-string, that's 6 voices. A bass guitar, one with 4 strings, I assume, that's 4 voices. So we'll give another better example of voices in relation to polyphony. So we have one polyphony. I have to stop saying we have one note polyphony with one voice. So there's a voice count here. So this is one note at a time, right? We can add another oscillator. So if we look back, the Moog, I'll go back to it. The Moog, this is 3 voices, 3 oscillators, 3 voices, one note polyphony, right? All right, so we will add another voice, move this an octave up. This is now 2 voices with one note polyphony. So still one note at a time, but there's 2 voices. Oops, maybe I should play this. I'm experimenting with blues scale because I'm weird. So, with that being said, I want to show you, and you can boost the voices up to 8, and then up to 16. So one note will have 16 voices. So there's 16 saws going on at once, and they're all slightly detuned from each other, right? So I'm going to show you something else. So reason you need to know this. So right now we reset. It's on 3-note polyphony. So we can play 3 notes at a time, right? And that's all well and good. It can go up to 16. But I want to give you an example of why you should kind of be focusing on that. So we're going to go back to 1-note polyphony, so 1 note at a time. Turn the release up, and right? Notice how that sounds, right? Doesn't overlap, but if we boost up to 2-note polyphony, we can have 2 notes going on at once, and that can be the same note, right? They're overlapping. The release is overlapping with the other one. So what does that mean? So if you're playing chords and you have a long release, we'll play a triad of, blues, whatever. It completely resets. It doesn't play 6 notes at once, right? Because the release is so long that in theory you would think it would overlap, but it can only handle 3 voices, and the note priority is to play the new notes, right? But if we boost it up to 6, so you could probably hear that. I'll go low and then high. Right? You're hearing 6, and the voices, you can see the voices up here. I almost pointed at the screen, right? So it's using up all 6 voices to play 6 sounds at once, right? So that's just kind of something for you to listen to. As an example, the JP 8080, it's 10 voices, right? So if you have your first layer, you're playing a chord, and there's a long release. say, and you're playing your chords with 3 notes, you know, you're using 6 voices, right? So then, in theory, if you have another layer and there's a bass line and it's 1 note, you're using 7 voices, in theory, when you're only at once you're playing 4 notes, right? Just think about that one. Also, voices, say in the virus, a voice is more of a unit of processing. So I'll show you. I really hope I explained that well. So the virus is 50 voices, but it's kind of adaptive. So you would have your 2 oscillators right here. This is 2 voices. You can have your super saw, which is 8 saws at once, and that would still be, if you have it selected, that's still 1 voice. If you have unison, you double that. That's 2 voices if you're playing 1 note, right? And you know, like I said, there's a unit of measurement. So say the filter, an analog mode filter, would take up maybe 1 or 2 voices. A delay and a reverb would probably take a voice or 2, and it's just a unit of processing for newer kind of things. Just how it works. So 1 note would take 4 voices, depending on like what you're doing, not 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, something like that, right? So I hope that kind of explains it. So again, if you're playing a chord with a long release, you'll see the voices jump up because they're overlapping, right? If there's no release, it only goes up to 3. So a good way to kind of do it and to kind of clean up your mixes and make it so it's not too much of a cluster, is you would have just 3 note polyphony if you're just playing chords, if you don't want that kind of rolling pad. So you'll have the long release, it'll be a richer sound, but you won't have overlap. Compared to having kind of overlaps. You don't want that. So kind of hope I explained that a bit better. So in the case of the Moog, you have, of course, you have 1 note polyphony, but 3 voices. That's 1 voice with 1 note polyphony. That's 2 voices, and that's 3 voices. Right? It's not 1 voice, it's 3. You can also do something the Moog couldn't do. You can bump up the voices, bump up the polyphony, so you would have obviously way more voices. You can play chords too. Oh, there's a little knobby here. Yeah, but just an extra feature. All right, hope I learned you stuff. Any questions, let me know. But yeah, there's a difference. Voice, polyphony. Alrighty, take care.